Hello, and welcome to Schmidy's Guide to Dark Agartha in Secret World Legends. I'm going to be going through how to do that. So if this is the first time you've done the mission, you want to go to the Great Mall of Agartha and pick up a one-time mission that's going to be over here on this Paragon console. It is going to allow you to get a free elaborate glyph imbuer, which is very much like this one, except it'll increase it to elaborate. And that's going to be a big deal, and otherwise each time you win, you're getting these little elaborate glyph fragments. The mission also, the first time you take it, doesn't cost any AP or SP, so I would definitely suggest doing it at least once, although it can be a trap for players in certain situations, so after the first time, so we're going to talk about that. So you can see you just sort of have to hop down on this platform next to the gatekeeper. If you play the old Secret World, you're going to be used to doing that. You just sort of hop down onto that branch, and it'll let you enter Dark Agartha. The first time you come through, it's got a couple of heads-up displays, shows you some stuff. Basically, you've got a little custodian over here that allows you to get stuff. We'll just sift through it real quick. You can get an extra life. You can get these little red things after you've touched that orb that we're about to touch. You can get extra time. You can get buffs. You can get these anima potions. I would actually suggest getting that health and attack one if you don't have one of these supreme anima or supreme potency anima potions. And they're pretty nice. And then you can see our skills. It's basically just a DPS build with enough passive healing to keep us alive. The first passive healing we're going to be using is this purification drone. It's super important. Almost everything has some kind of a cleansable effect, and even if it doesn't, you can use it as a heal. On top of that, we are also going to be using the signet of Cruel Delight. And that, even though it is obviously probably around E5, is going to have enough healing already to keep us alive just because of our strong crit power and crit rating. So, you touch this barrier, and if it isn't your first time, you're going to be paying 7 ability points and 15 skill points, and this is huge. If you do not have all the passives in the game, and if you are not already trying to get through your capstones, or if you're trying to complete your capstones, you're going to have to it's sort of like you're going to have to decide which one you want while we look at how cool this area is. Do you want to finish your capstones or your passives? And I would definitely suggest at least finishing your passives. Or do you want to run this? And you can still run it, it's fun. Do it once in a while, but just understand that it's sort of taking away from stuff. So we can sort of see that each of these areas has a broken lore next to it that sort of shows you what you do. So this one says the platform is small. He's going to give you a dot that you can cleanse, and occasionally he's going to use Enkindle, which if you've seen a couple of the djinns in the real world, they do this too. It just sort of puts an AoE at your feet, and then you sort of just have to keep walking away because it keeps putting AoEs at your feet. We'll see that here in a second. So you can see we just got that thing that we can cleanse here. And here's Enkindle. So see how it just sort of puts an AoE at your feet, and we can just keep sort of walking out of the way of it, not taking too much damage. And also notice that Cruel Delight is healing us, even though we're not doing any damage during this time to the boss, because we can still critically hit and get a 0, and that will proc your Cruel Delight signet. So that's pretty neat. Cruel Delight is cool, and that hurt a lot, so we're going to use our cleanse the second that we get a chance here. There's our cleanse, and now what we really need is for him to cast a skill. That's going to let us get up. You see how quickly, with just our passive healing, we were able to get all the way back up to full health? That's why I don't like a lot of active healing. If you need the active healing and you happen to be running one of the 3 weapons in the game that gives you a healing basic ability, go for it. It definitely helps, and you'll sort of be using it incidentally whenever you run out of energy anyway. But for the most part, I don't like to bring active heals because they tend to make you lose a lot of DPS and have to focus on healing and be the healer, when really you should just be focusing on the DPS instead of trying to DPS and heal. And the passive healing allows you to do that as long as you've brought enough passive healing to survive. So, we're going to hop over to our next fight here. Be careful on these broken platforms. If you fall, you will lose one of your 3 lives. So you can see that we're going to have little unpredictable flames. He's debilitated. He gives us, or he has a pitchfork-shaped skill, and he has extra health. And sure, he does. He's got an extra almost like 200,000 hit points, it looks like. So you can see that the ability that was up top there, the environmental ability, is those flame tornadoes go rolling around everywhere. And there's the pitchfork. And at this point in time, we're just sort of, our goal here is to not get hit by these AoEs, or at least not get hit by them for very long, and also not corner ourselves, so that if he has another AoE that he shoots, we have enough space that we can sort of scoot out of the way and not have to worry too much. So you can see that melee can become a little difficult at times here if you're running only melee, because you're going to have to really position yourself well to make it so that you're having a good uptime on this boss. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot longer fights, and if they are enraging fights where the boss does more damage as time goes on, that could spell your doom, so be careful about that. At this point in time, we're basically just finding spots where we can be that we aren't going to be cornered. So that's pretty much it. At this point in time, it's just sort of rinse and repeat. Let our passive healing do the job for us while we finish him off here. And try not to get cornered. Woo! So here we're sort of cornered a little bit, aren't we? Not too bad. But for a second there, we were definitely cornered. It doesn't matter because the fight's basically over, though. So there we go. And these things can totally hit you after the fight is over. So if you're really close to dying and then you hit one of those, you will lose one of your 3 lives. So be careful. And then we're heading over to the next thing here. So this platform, the environmental effect is that it's broken up. It looks a lot like the donut platform that can enkindle itself. We'll talk about that a little bit here in a second. But she's got a couple things. Supersonic Hell is a huge AoE. Cursed, obviously, another thing we can cleanse. The Rage is just she goes slow, but if she touches you, you die. And then Robust is just the buff that she gets, or she can't really be debuffed. So we're just attacking her here. And you sort of get your first view of the teleport. So she'll teleport from one platform to another, and you got to hop over to the other ones because they aren't quite connected. So if you just walk, unless you're in a very specific spot, you are going to fall. And again, that loses a life unless you grabbed that item at the beginning. So she's raging, obviously. We're just staying away from that. And here we go. So yeah, there's another platform that looks a lot like this. The difference is that instead of there being breaks in between the little donut area, it instead catches on fire, and that fire slowly creeps in a certain direction. It just sort of like forces you to walk backwards and go around in circles until you win. That one can be really disgusting for melee classes, depending upon the monster you get, because it can really force you off of the monster for a really long time. So be wary of that. We're just sort of finishing up here. Ow! We're just sort of finishing up here. And we're going to head over to the next one. And that is sort of the issue with the passive heals, is that occasionally, if you get unlucky, you can get down to low HP or sometimes even die. But for the most part, I find it to be a practical way to deal with these fights. And that's why I suggest it. So we're heading over, and you can see, you'll see here in a second, that this is the Shattered Twig. This thing is huge. Look at this. This whole thing is the combat zone. You can see each of those larger platform areas is going to be one of the places where we fight. So he's got a Rage. What else has he got? Exposed. He's got another cleansable thing. So we've used cleanse on like 3 out of the 4 fights up to this point. So that cleanse drone is super good. But basically, how this works is every time you get him down to 25% hit points, and you can see we sort of have some markers for when that's going to happen on his HP bar, at least the little circular one that I'm mostly paying attention to. There's his Rage. Every time he gets down to 25%, he's going to teleport to the next area. So obviously he rages, So one of the big things with the rage in particular is that he's going to get stunned for quite some time after that rage. So you don't want to go too crazy here. We're not gonna do anything too nuts, because really, like, yeah, we don't use our whoop. Yeah, so sorry, we're not going to use anything too crazy, because if you knock him from 80% down to say 25%, he is going to fly all the way over to that very last platform. And while on the surface that isn't a big deal, he can attack from an infinite range, and we're going to see that here. We actually saw it before, but he's going to hit us with these little green attacks, just boop, so he can smack you around a little bit. And if he moves 2 to 3 platforms away when that happens, he can do a ton of damage to you before you can get to him. So at that point in time, you would actually need some form of active heal if you were to have done that. So you kind of want to pace yourself on these, even if you're able to do enough damage that you could bring him down really quickly. So again, we're going to sort of knock him down to 25%. After he uses Virulent Disease, he's obviously going to teleport again. I'm just going to wait for that. There it is. And he comes over to this last area. And again, he can hit us from any range. Even if we were all the way at the beginning, he would be able to hit us from this platform, which is why you have to be really careful. So he's basically done here. We're just going to fire off a couple more shots. And that'll be the end of it. Now, if you don't have all the lore for this area yet, and really you can't as of the making of this video because you haven't had enough days to get all the lore, there are other lores that look like this one we're looking at. If there's a second lore, then you can get stuff. So you can see that the end is that fungus over there. He's got anima drain. It's interruptible. You have to interrupt that twice, which is why I'm underlining it. You have to interrupt that twice. You have short circuit, so malfunction. Don't attack him while he's doing that. If you attack him, you get damage back. He seems to always have plasma. And then here's enraging. The longer the fight lasts, the more damage he deals. So, I'm going to show you sort of a little trick here in a moment, and we are actually going to die on purpose for several different reasons so that I can show you a bunch of cool stuff. First, I'm going to add CQC to my build so that I have 2 impairs, so that when he uses the anima transfusion stuff, I can impair it twice. And we're going to scoot over to a little bit more survivability. This guy does a little bit more damage, and we might even run a potion here. Basically, that allows me to make it so that my passive healing does enough, assuming that I don't make any egregious mistakes against the boss, which we are going to do on purpose. So let's just get into it here. So the first 4 bosses are all just sort of random creatures, but the last boss is always this damaged gatekeeper. He has different skills, but the end is always the thing you have to deal with here. You can see it occurring right now. That fungus sort of like tries to come over and grab you, and if it hits you, it'll give you a dot, and it'll slow you down. So you want to try to stay away from it. And here's, ow, malfunction. So that hurts a lot. I don't know why that hurts so much compared to all the rest of the stuff he does, but that hurts a lot. And then the next thing we're waiting for is anima drain. Here we go. So I'm going to interrupt the first part of this, but we're not going to interrupt the second part. In fact, I don't even have my interrupt ready for that. I'm going to stay away from this fungus so that I can sort of show you what happens when you don't interrupt this. Okay, so we got Destruction Protocol, and you can see it's not too huge yet. And we're just going to be attacking him here until we can get one of these things that I would like to see. So here's Malfunction. You can see that I went from like full health to like 20%. That hurts a lot. And now, there you go. You see that? Ooh, okay, we got caught by the fungus. We're going to die here. You see how big that Destruction Protocol is? Yeah. All right, so you see this Echo of Knowledge right here? That can be one of the places where the lore is, and I didn't pick it up because I'm dumb. But that can be one of the places where the lore is. That's the only place where you have to die to be able to pick up the lore. And the next thing you can see is that he actually didn't heal back to full health. And that's another little thing I wanted to show you here, which is that this guy does not heal, or none of the bosses actually heal back to full health. They gain about 25% of their HP back. So even if you do die, you don't lose all your progress, assuming you did a decent chunk to them. So this time we're going to actually try. I'm going to be interrupting Anima Drain, trying not to get obliterated by Malfunction. We're just sort of going to chill. Alright. And you can see that the passive healing going to be big. Okay, so the other thing here. If you allow him to do that stuff, his Destruction Protocol does not get smaller. So I believe that at some point in time, maybe at 50% HP, it might just get large and stay large. I haven't done enough testing to really be able to tell you for sure, but I do know that if you let him use his anima drain and stuff, this seems to happen. It either does more damage or it becomes huger. So we're just going to beat him up here. You can see that since he's a melee character, running away from his AoEs when we have our own ranged attack is actually a double bonus. We get out of the way of the AoE, and he's got to walk all the way back over to us to do damage. And we might wind up using a heal here. Yeah, probably. I used one before, I didn't point it out. But basically, yeah, the other option you have is you've got heal potions. You get a couple of them per day. If you're getting whooped, you can use one of those as your active heal, because you shouldn't need too much if you've got this. And that's it. Beware of this destruction protocol. It does do damage to you. You can die and lose your progress if you don't let it go away. And you'll see that we get elaborate glyph fragments. Once you get 300 of those, you can create an elaborate glyph imbuer, and you can see that we got about 15 of them that time. And I hope you all enjoyed. I'm glad I got to see everything. I hope to see you when we see some new content.